What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Everyday Discipline, where we decode, deconstruct, and reverse engineer self-discipline for you to get whatever it is you want in your life. My name is Brent Kokel, and I am your host. As always, nobody else has hosted this show. I've never had a guest host, but I don't have to do it live, so I guess I don't really need a guest host ever. I do want to bring some other people on the show at some point here, talk about their own journeys and their paths, and just haven't gotten around to it yet, but I got a lot of stories to share and a lot of lessons to provide, which is exactly what's going to go down in this episode here today. As usual, there is a fee. You've got to do something with the information that you get today. If it gives you perspective, if it makes you think differently, go do something about it. Next 24 to 48 hours, simplest action possible for you to improve your life in whatever area that you feel like you need the most improvement right now. That could be business, you want to make more money. It could be body, you want to get more fit. It could be relationships, you want to level those up. Like wherever this is for you is where I want you to take an action. That's the fee for watching the show. So frequent listeners to this show know that I am no stranger to doing dumb things. And I did another dumb thing last week. Again, right? So I washed my truck. I washed my truck for the first time in 6 months. And there's a couple reasons for me not washing it in 6 months. The first is that it's matte black, which hardly ever looks dirty. It's weird, like the shiny black always looks dirty, but matte black hardly ever looks dirty. So you don't ever have to do it. But the second part of it is truck should be dirty. This is the first time in my life I've ever had a truck, and I always thought, man, like those should be dirty. Like the truck should be dirty. So the truck's dirty most of the time. My wife doesn't even mind that much. It's fantastic. So I go and I wash my truck because we came back from the mountains last week and we had this freak spring snowstorm that snowed maybe like 6 inches or so. But the roads, just like after it snows, if you've ever driven in that and you know you're driving out of the snow, it's just really, really dirty. And so we like to rate things like my truck was like tie hooker level of dirty. Never experienced a tie hooker or any hooker for that matter, but I can only imagine they're dirty, and maybe it paints a better picture for you. So this thing was like massively dirty, and I had to wash it because I got home and it was just trashed, and it was like, all right, man, we're gonna get down to it. Like we're gonna wash the truck. So I spent 2 hours washing my truck because you got to get on ladders and stuff. It's got a 4-inch lift kit on it. It took a long time to wash the truck, and then the next day it rained. Not a whole lot. Maybe like 30 minutes or so, but it was just enough to completely negate everything that I had done in washing that truck for the first time in 6 months. But of course, there's a valuable lesson in this, and there's a valuable lesson specifically in business for the plight of my clean, or my dirty, then clean, then dirty truck again, which is that there are so many things that you could do in your business, but only a very small percentage of those things are things you actually should do. Right? Look at that. There's so many things you could do, right? There are so many things you could do, right? You could look at this and you could say like, listen, we could say that we're going to start shifting our marketing to be more pain focused, or we're going to tweak something in our sales process that will hopefully give us a higher closing rate. You're going to be able to think about maybe addressing the cultural issues that you know are coming for you. You know those things are brewing. But which ones should you do? Because if you run any decent size company, like at least 1 million, up to 10 million probably, you've experienced this. You've experienced that you come up with some great idea and something that you should do or could do, and so you say, all right, we're gonna go, and you start tactically executing because we've been brought to the space where we believe that taking action is what we need to do, but busy and productive aren't the same thing, and so this is what happens. You wind up going along. You expend all the time of your team, all the resources of your company, and you don't get a result that you want. In those cases, I'm going to have you consider that what you did was something that you could do versus something that you should do. And I promise you, every company that is dominating whatever marketplace you are in right now is doing a good job of making sure they're working on the right work before they start executing. When you execute the right work, it increases the impact of every minute spent by your team, and therefore exponentially increases the bottom line impact of every minute that the team spends. This is what every company that's dominating your marketplace does. So the natural question is, how do we make sure that we've got the right work? Because undoubtedly, if you've been in business for any period of time, you've done the wrong work at some point, and this includes me. Right? This is how I figured out this was a problem, is because I did a lot of things that we could do. I would get my team organized, I would get all the financial resources put in place, and we would just start going. But it wasn't something that we should do, and so we end up wasting 3 to 5 months. We end up wasting $50,000 to $80,000, all because we didn't think about what the right work to do. So how do you figure out what the right work to do is? I've found a 4-part framework to be really, really successful, but I'm going to share with you guys just the first part of that today because the second, third, and fourth are really complicated and require more hands-on stuff. So I'll talk about the first, which is coming up with a systematic way to qualify each opportunity. This really, really helps you dial in what stuff is the right work, what stuff you should do versus what stuff you could do. Qualify the opportunity. How do we qualify the opportunity? We've got a system of measured criteria that tell us, like, listen, every time we've got an idea, what we're going to do is we're going to stack it against our way of qualifying the opportunity. We're going to look at it and say, what's the short-term financial impact of this? Like, what's the intended short-term financial impact of this? Does it line up with our long-term company objectives? How rarely do you think about that? Does it line up with our long-term company objectives? Not just what we're trying to do this year, but what we're trying to do at the finish line. I know most of the time I didn't think about that, so I imagine that a lot of you aren't thinking about that either. But thinking about really how it lines up. Is there true alignment between this particular thing that you want to do, your initiative, your change, whatever it is? Does it line up with what the long-term vision of your company is? Is it going to help you get towards the finish line, or is it a distraction that's going to take you on a side path that's going to take you even longer to get to the finish line? We've got to think about what that looks like. The other thing people don't do often, at least I didn't do often, and I say people don't, and I would say that I'm fairly well plugged into what companies do and don't do with the number of companies that I work with, but they don't ever look at what the real downside is. Everybody's got this optimistic flair when they first go out and they're going to start a new idea, something that they could execute. And they're like doing the math. And I've done this too, like I've done with all this stuff. I've gone through and done the math and thought like, oh my God, we're going to make like $5 million off of this one idea. But I never looked at the downside in what could go wrong. If all of this went sideways, can I live with what the downside is? Because now that I'm almost 2 decades into running businesses, one of the things that I have come to realize is that one of the biggest ways to get rich is to not lose the money chasing after stupid shit. This isn't a shrink your way to riches conversation. This is a don't be so dumb conversation. And the way not to be dumb is just to ask yourself a couple of questions before you get going, isn't it? Because if you just pause for a second and just do that, you're qualifying the opportunity. You're deciding in advance if it makes sense, if you can live with the downside, if it lines up with your long-term financial objectives or your long-term company objectives, which might be financial and might not be in some cases. But when you're able to do this, what it does is it removes all of the doubt and it removes all of the wrong work, which are really bloodthirsty, profit-sucking vampires to your business. You've got to remove that. And it makes every minute that you and your team spend that much more efficient, drives the bottom line that much more, which when you drive the bottom line that much more, wonderful things happen. You get to take home more to your family. You also get to reinvest more into your business and help more people however you choose to help them. But this only happens when you're working on the right work. So if in the past quarter or 5 quarters even, you find yourself consistently frustrated, things aren't going the way that you want them to go, right? It's not producing the result that you want. Maybe you're ahead, maybe you're behind. That's not really the point. What the point is that if you feel like you're struggling, it's likely because you're missing this step of qualifying the opportunity. Really deciding if it's something that is going to work for you or not in advance. Then there's a whole process of making it work and breaking it down and making it actionable and all of that stuff. And I talk about that on a bunch of other episodes. And I'll talk about that more in the future, I'm sure. But the purpose of this thing here is that if there's a spot you're struggling, then what's going on in reality is that you're working on the wrong work. It's not that you're dumb. It's not that you don't have the skill set necessarily. It's that you just picked the wrong thing to do. So go back and pick the right thing to do by simply qualifying the opportunity. I want you guys to work on that. That's your thing. That's your call to action. That is your fee for today and watching the show today, which is really figure out how you're going to qualify the opportunity. I've got my system of doing it, but you may have your own. But whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It is about the qualification and making sure that the opportunities that you could do are actually things you should do. So work on a simple system next 24 to 48 hours that you can utilize in your own life. And we've been talking about business this whole time. But by the way, this completely works when it comes to body, and it comes to relationships, and it comes to spirituality. Everything in it works because there's a bunch of things you could do. You could run a marathon, but should you? Is it aligned with how you actually want to look? Because a marathon runner, pretty damn skinny. I know because I used to be one. And then turned into a CrossFitter because I wanted to change how my body looked. See, running a marathon wasn't in line with the long-term mission, so I had to qualify the opportunity. The opportunity costed my time. So think about this, wherever it is, could be in business, could be in body, maybe relationships, maybe spirituality, but wherever it is, what is it that you need to put in place to actually qualify an opportunity to make it something where you will know that it's the right thing for you guys to do? All right, guys, that's it. That's the show for the day, everybody. Hey, before you leave, do me a favor. Give me a rating on whatever platform you're watching this on. If you're watching it on YouTube, smash the like button and also subscribe because that certainly helps out. But if you're listening to it audio only on Spotify, Apple, Pandora, wherever you're doing that, please give me a rating. It helps the algorithm get out there. I'm not selling you shit on this show. This is simply because I want to help. I think capitalism is under attack, and I don't want you to lose that fight. The only way that we are collectively going to win this fight is if all of us capitalists wind up fighting the good fight and making more money than the bad guys. So liking this show, giving it a bigger rating will help it get out to more people, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. That's the favor I asked of you today. I'm going to come back again, though, in a couple days. I'm going to give you guys another story, another lesson. We're going to link that up with some action for you guys to take to better on your own life, and I hope to see you guys back here on that show. Have a good day, everybody.